Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. So yeah, in this video I'm just gonna go through all of the Blu-rays and 4Ks that I have picked up and purchased for the month of March 2024. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So just a few Blu-rays to show first, and the first one we have here is Blue Ruin. So this is a film directed by Jeremy Saulnier, who directed Green Room. And it's basically like a revenge movie about this guy who's like down on his luck. He's homeless. And he finds out that the man who is suspected of killing his parents has been released from prison, and he decides to go on a bit of a revenge mission. And I won't say much more than that. This film is highly acclaimed, and I've heard a lot of positive things about it from people. But admittedly, I was a little bit let down with this film. I found it a bit too slow. I didn't really engage with the story, and I was just hoping for a bit more intensity from the revenge story aspect. But I'm probably just in the minority because, like I said, this film is highly acclaimed, and I know a lot of people really like this one. But for me, I was a little bit disappointed. But still, it had some decent moments. There's some very brutal moments, especially at the end of the film. But yeah, I was just a little bit disappointed in this one. But yeah, that is Blue Ruin. Next up, we have a Spanish Blu-ray for a movie called Fearless. This is directed by Peter Weir, and it stars Jeff Bridges, and it was released in 1993. It's about this guy, played by Jeff Bridges, who survives this plane crash at the beginning of the film, and it's him and a bunch of other people. They all survive this plane crash, and it's basically about how he deals with the aftermath of it. So it goes through a few things like, post-traumatic stress, survivor's guilt, things like that, before it builds to a very powerful climax. I'd never heard of this movie before, but I saw it pop up on a few like best movies ever lists, and I was quite surprised to see this one, considering I'd never heard of it. But guys, I have to tell you, this is one of the best films I have seen in a very long time. This was an instant 10 out of 10 for me. Just like I said, a very powerful film. Jeff Bridges is fantastic in this movie. He's fantastic in pretty much everything he's in, but in this one, he just absolutely kills it. He's amazing in it. And like I said, the story reaches a very, very powerful, harrowing climax. And it's one of those films that when the credits started rolling, I was just sat there in a stunned silence. I just couldn't believe what I'd watched. So yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend it. I just thought it was a fantastic drama, and it's definitely jumped up into probably one of my favourite movies ever. So yeah, that is Fearless. Next up, we have The Last Castle, and this is a prison drama / thriller starring Robert Redford. He plays this general who is sent to prison at the beginning of the film. The prison is run by the warden, played by James Gandolfini, and during Robert Redford's time there, he discovers that a lot of prisoners have died under mysterious circumstances, and he decides to basically investigate what's going on. And then it kind of builds to him rallying the other prisoners together and staging a revolt against the people that run this prison. And I really enjoyed this film. It started off a bit slow. It's maybe a little bit too long, but it builds to a really good climax. And there's some amazing action sequences in that last, the finale of the film, I should say. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Robert Redford, but there's a few films with him, and this one I thought he was very good in, and James Gandolfini played a really good villain character. You've also got a youngish Mark Ruffalo in there. So yeah, really underrated film. I enjoyed it. Like I said, it was a bit slow to start, but it did get better as it went on. And overall, I enjoyed it. So yeah, that is The Last Castle. Next up, we have a Blu-ray release from Eureka. This is a bit of an old one. It's been out of print a while. I've been wanting to get this one with a slipcover because they did a few of these films that all had sort of matching artworks, and I've got them all apart from this one, and I managed to find it in CEX, and it's a movie called Duel to the Death, and this is a martial arts sword play film from the early 80s. It's about China and Japan. Every 10 years, they get their two best warriors together to take part in a duel. But in this instance, the two warriors discover that there's some corruption going on and that the fight may potentially be rigged. And the two warriors, you know, being very noble, very honourable, they want nothing to do with that, and they want it to be a fair fight. So they end up having to join forces, at least for a little while, just to basically take down these conspirators. Really fun movie, very fast-paced. It's only about 80 minutes long, but just a lot of fun. There's some great action in it. The action's very over the top and silly. There's like exploding ninjas in this film. So yeah, it is very silly, but turn your brain off and you'll have a good time with it. That is Duel to the Death. And then the last Blu-ray that I have here is a movie that I literally just picked it up this weekend. I've not yet watched it, so I can't really tell you too much about it, but it is The Psychic, directed by Lucio Fulci. This is a shameless release with reversible artwork. And yeah, like I said, I've not seen this movie, so I can't really tell you too much about it, but Fulci is known for being the godfather of gore, but I believe this film is meant to be one of his more grounded films, a bit more atmospheric, a bit more mystery to it. But I know a lot of people say this is probably one of his most underrated films, so really looking forward to checking it out. But yeah, can't say much more than that, but that is The Psychic. Right, so onto the 4Ks now, and the first one I have here is one of the big releases from March. I think a lot of people probably picked this one up, and it is The Abyss. So yeah, this is the American 4K, because obviously for us here in the UK, we did not get a UK release for this movie, so I had to get the American release. And yeah, I love this film. It's been a favourite of mine for a long time. Really underrated film from James Cameron. I think a lot of people go into this movie expecting it to be kind of like Aliens underwater, but really it's more like Close Encounters underwater. But great movie, great message in it. Great effects for the time it was made. Great acting from the likes of Ed Harris and Michael Biehn. And yeah, just a great movie. It's nice to have both cuts of the film in it, even though I will never watch the theatrical cut. It will always be the extended cut for me. And yeah, just a great film. Very underrated Cameron film. And I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say that it's so great to finally have this movie, not only on 4K, but just on Blu-ray. It's great to finally see it. So yeah, that is The Abyss. Sticking with James Cameron, I'll show you these two films together because they kind of match. But we have Avatar and we have Avatar Way of the Water. So yeah, if you saw my last pickups video or the one before it, I did pick up Avatar Way of the Water on 4K already. And I was going to get the first one, but then I realised that they were releasing these sort of special editions of them. And I thought they looked really nice, and I decided to get the both of them. So I essentially double dipped on The Way of the Water. But they're really nice box sets. You get like a digipack with 4 discs. The same with the second one as well. And yeah, I know these films are not very well liked. And, you know, I'll even say myself that they are probably James Cameron's 2 worst films. But I still enjoy them. I mean, I will say that the first one, I loved it when I saw it in the cinema, but over the years, I've kind of grown less fond of it. But the second one, I really enjoy, and I think it's a much better film than the first one. I saw it in the cinema, liked the first one, enjoyed it, and when I rewatched it, I still liked it. I just think it has a better story. I like the last hour of the film. Some of the action in that last hour is just incredible. And yeah, I just enjoy these films. I know they're not the best, but yeah, I just think they're pretty solid sort of blockbuster popcorn movies. And yeah, they're pretty nice releases, and I thought I'd get them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the third one. And yeah, that is the Avatar films on 4K. Next up, we have a 4K that I picked up on the 2 for 30 deal in HMV, and it is Kurosawa's Ran. So yeah, this is Kurosawa's samurai epic, his retelling of Shakespeare's King Lear. I have seen this film before. I've not watched it on 4K yet, but I remember when I watched it at the time, I thought to myself, this movie would look amazing in 4K. So yeah, can't wait to rewatch this one. I think when people think of Kurosawa, they think of his early stuff like Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Rashomon. But for me, I tend to gravitate more to his later films like this one. You've also got Kagemusha, Dreams, Rhapsody in August. He's got some great films in the latter part of his career. But this one is probably my personal favourite. But yeah, looking forward to rewatching it on 4K. That is Ran. And then the other film that I picked up on the 2 for 30 deal, we have Sleepy Hollow, directed by Tim Burton. Yeah, this is a film I've loved for a long time. I can remember when this film came out, and I think I was probably only about 9 or 10 when it came out, but I remember I really enjoyed it. I would say this is probably Tim Burton's last real great movie. I think after this film, he went on a bit of a downward spiral for me, but everything he made from the 80s all the way to the end of the 90s with this film, I think is great. And yeah, I think this is kind of underrated. On a rewatch, I completely forgot how good Johnny Depp was in this film. He's actually kind of funny. He's sort of like, not necessarily a bumbling detective, but he's a bit squeamish, and yeah, just some of the things he does in this film are just quite amusing to me. So yeah, I really enjoy his performance in it. It's also got some great like scary moments, some intense moments, some good gore, and yeah, it looks really good on 4K as well. So yeah, like I said, really underrated film in my opinion. One I've loved for a long time. So that is Sleepy Hollow. Next up, we have another big release that I'm sure a lot of people have picked up. This one only came out today being the 1st of April, but it actually arrived over the weekend. And it is True Lies on 4K. So yeah, another James Cameron film gets the 4K treatment. And yeah, this was always going to be a day one purchase for me. This was probably the first Arnold Schwarzenegger film I saw. I remember being very young when I saw it, and it was most definitely the first James Cameron film that I saw. So yeah, this has always had a bit of a special place in my heart. I've seen it countless times, and yeah, I'm just so glad to see, like The Abyss, it finally gets a 4K and a Blu-ray release. I do have a Spanish Blu-ray of this, but I'm not even sure if that's even an official release. The movie's fantastic. It's got everything. It's got a great cast, great performance by Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis, some amazing action sequences, and also a lot of comedic moments that are actually very, very funny. And again, like The Abyss, it's probably one of James Cameron's most underrated films, but I would probably put it up there as one of his best films. But like I said, I do have a lot of nostalgia for it, so I could kind of be looking at it with like rose-tinted glasses. But I still think it's a fantastic movie. I've heard the 4K transfer is not the greatest. It doesn't really surprise me, if I'm being honest, because I know James Cameron likes to tinker with his films like George Lucas. But like I said, we've never had like a proper release of this movie, so I'm still going to get this anyway. I'm sure it will still look better than it ever has done. But yeah, that is True Lies on 4K. Next up, we have a new release from Indicator. Not a label I tend to buy from much anymore, but every so often they do release some good ones, and this is a good one. And it is a film called Patrick. So this is a psychological horror film directed by Richard Franklin. He would go on to direct movies like Psycho 2 and Road Games, two fantastic films. But I think this may have been the last film he made in his native Australia before he moved to Hollywood. And yeah, I just think this is a fantastic movie that I remember seeing a few years ago, and I'm so glad to see it finally get a physical media release. It's about this guy called Patrick who, at the beginning of the movie, he murders his parents, and then he ends up falling into like this catatonic coma-like state, and he ends up in hospital, but in hospital he's in bed like this with his eyes wide open. And as the film goes on, some strange things start to happen, and it's possible that maybe his consciousness is able to leave his body, and it starts to influence things. So it's quite a creepy film. It's a bit of a slow burn, but it's a great psychological thriller. Sort of has that same sort of vibe as something like Rosemary's Baby, but it has some really creepy moments, and very underrated horror film. Really glad to have it finally on physical media. So yeah, that is Patrick. Next up, we have a new release from Arrow Video, and we have City of the Living Dead on 4K. Another Lucio Fulci film. This one's probably a bit more well-known. It's his zombie classic, the first part in his Gates of Hell trilogy. And yeah, it's just a fun movie. It's not perfect, it's got some iffy moments, but I enjoy it on the whole. It's just a fun movie. Got some great gore in there. The scene of the woman vomiting her guts and her intestines is just mind-blowing, especially with how they filmed it. I'm not easily disgusted and sickened by gore, but that scene does get me. And yeah, it's just a really fun movie. Great music in it as well. I absolutely adore the soundtrack to this film. And yeah, just a very nice release from Arrow Video. I did already own the original Blu-ray that they released, I think back in 2010, but I didn't pick up the remastered one that they did a few years ago. I think because I always knew they'd re-release it again on 4K, and lo and behold, they have. But yeah, really fun zombie movie, very gross, very gory in places, but yeah, just a great film. So yeah, that is City of the Living Dead. And then lastly, we have another Fulci film, another one from Arrow Video, and we have House by the Cemetery on 4K. Yeah, this one's been out a few months, but after I got City of the Living Dead, I decided to pick up this one as well. This is the third part in his Gates of Hell trilogy. And for me, this film isn't quite as good as City of the Living Dead. It's not quite as fun, it's a bit more slower paced. But at the same time, I do feel like Fulci is trying to be a bit more serious with this film, and he's trying to dig into some more thematically deeper things with it, which I do appreciate. It does have a pretty good last 20-30 minutes or so, though, some good gory moments in it. The one thing I don't like about this film, though, is the little boy. I just find him so annoying. But it's not necessarily the boy himself, it's whoever they got to do the dubbing of his voice, because whenever this boy cries or whenever he screams, it just goes through me and I just hate it. And yeah, it's probably one of the reasons why I don't enjoy this film as much, but I do feel like it is a film that grows on you the more you watch it, because I did enjoy it a lot more on a rewatch, and looks fantastic on 4K, like City of the Living Dead, I should say, as well. But yeah, that is House by the Cemetery. So there you go, guys. Those are all of my Blu-ray pickups for March 2024. So really hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen any of these movies. Have you picked up any of these particular Blu-ray releases? I would love to hear your thoughts. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you all again on the next one. So take care.